All right, let's begin our session today. I'm Jeffrey Campos, Executive Director of Global Chamber Denver, and I'd like to welcome everybody for attending today. Global Chamber is one of a kind, virtual and growing community of CEOs, executives, and leaders in 525 regions around the world. We're focused on helping companies grow in more than just one metro area. We're the only organization in the world with hundreds of locations that help executives grow their company through warm connections and a variety of virtual services. And the focus of today's Global State of the Metro 2020 is to learn about the safe and sustainable and equitable future of our communities during the COVID and beyond. We have some great speakers today discussing the priorities across the global trade, economic development, and resources available. But let's start first of all with our sponsor, Prudential Insurance. Today we have Scott Wallace, the Regional VP at Prudential, joined by Louise Pumphrey of Prudential, our very own board member. Scott, let's hear a few comments from you. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon, everybody. We at Prudential really appreciate the time and appreciate being a sponsor of this great group and organization. So thank you very much there. Scott Wallace, as he stated, I've been with Prudential for about 15 years in the Denver area. However, I've got an 8-state territory that I cover, but this pandemic and this new world that we're in, I'm not traveling, but challenges and opportunities have been a very challenging year, but brings us opportunities. So I think people know Prudential. I think they know the name. We've been around quite a while, but we do have a local office here in the Tech Center and down by Park Meadows. And I do have two advisors here with me today. I believe James LaFemina is joining Louise Pumphrey as well, but you might hear from them in a minute. But again, we thank you, appreciate being a sponsor, and just want to say a couple of things. We have a new solution and strategy at Prudential that's very interesting, and it's designed for clients looking for downside protection, but can offer some great innovative growth opportunities for their retirement savings. So what if you could have an investment out there where you could make more than the market? I could do it with less risk, and I could do it with no fee. So what am I talking about? What if I could have a greater return than the S&P 500 index, do it with less risk with a buffered type program, meaning Prudential would eat some of the loss. And again, what if we could do it with no fee? That almost sounds like the perfect investment, right, Jeff? No fees and less risk and return to the market and more. So anyway, we get some great solutions, and that's just a couple of them. But I don't know if we have James, and I know Louise is there with Jeff, but is James on by any chance? I don't know if anybody else is going to be able to speak. What's that, Jeff? I think you're on mute. Yeah, Jeff, I think you're muted. I don't know if you can hear me, but anyway, thanks so much for allowing Prudential to be here today and be a sponsor. I have to jump to another meeting, but hope to see some folks and get to meet some of you here throughout the year. But again, Jeff, thanks so much for having Prudential be here and be a sponsor.
And Scott, thank you so much for your participation and support of Global Chamber.
You got it.
Appreciate everything you do.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Scott. All right. Now it gives me great privilege to introduce our first speaker. We have Amy Ettinger, who's the Senior Vice President of Commercial Business Development in the 5th busiest airport in the U.S., Denver International Airport, known as DEN. Amy leads the off-airport concessions, including car rental, the airport-owned Westin Hotel, telecommunications, the oil and gas, landside concessions, ground rental agreements. This also includes new business such as car sharing industry, combined their business hiring over 100 million annually into DEN. And in 2020, this includes working with industries on COVID impacts while planning for a strong recovery. Amy, welcome.
Thank you very much. I am going to try to share my screen. We think it works. We tested it earlier. So maybe, oh, I'll ask Jeff to help out. Do you see that now?
Yes, we do. We see the infamous peaks.
Yeah, we're branded at Den, if you didn't know. We try to be consistent with our marketing and branding, similar to how you all work in your organizations. I have maybe too many slides, but I'm going to try to quickly run through them. We did want to share with you all what we're doing at the airport. I have a funny aside for you. I moved from downtown economic development, where I worked with Stephanie and Tim Martinez and Deborah Cameron and others there, and Eric Caraga, to the airport almost 1 year ago, not quite 1 year ago. So I thought I had very different plans for 2020. We probably all did, and then COVID, right? So we really shifted a lot from some of the growth related items to really supporting the businesses and the airlines that we have. Okay, I'm just confirming you see the next slide, right? I won't ask for every slide.
Yeah.
This is just a really good visual, so I won't read it out loud. I just want you to look at, this is just comparing 2019 to 2020. We like to point out the worst of it was in April. We kind of bottomed out at 94% decline year over year. And many of you know, if that happens in your business, that's just really not good. We were grateful to get federal support and some other things. And where we are now, the data lags. We're about, 45, at this point, maybe more like 45, 50% down for the year. We thought we'd have a sort of an uptick over the holidays. These new COVID restrictions in other states, plus our own, are starting to change that a little bit. So we'll watch for it, but certainly, after starting off strong for the first few months, we've had a very different type of year. So you mentioned we were top 5. You'll notice in a COVID environment, we moved up to 1 or 2. So I wanted to point out what has happened now. Den does not have as much international travel. It's certainly something we've been working on, trying to get more of the international flights, but being in the middle of the country, we didn't have as many lost flights as some of the other airports. So we've moved up. In many weeks, we're number 1 in throughput. Lately, we're maybe more number 2, but our position has changed. Even though we like being in a good position, we don't want to be in a position because of COVID. So we'll, once things get better, work to get there in more positive ways. Quick slide just to show you, we do have quite a few airlines that are operating and still a handful that are not. So we're definitely impacted here. We do like to talk by the numbers, normally 5th busiest. You all know we tend to brag. We're very proud of the regional economic impact. It's hard, of course, when we point that out, and then in a time when we're impacted, we know that impacts other businesses and partners in the region as well. And really, last year, we were really hitting 69 million passengers. We thought we were well on our way to much more. At the end of this year, we might end up at levels more about 25 years ago when we were leaving the old Stapleton Airport. So you saw the slides didn't quite line up, somewhere between 94 and 96% traffic decline. Things are improving. We do expect, unfortunately, a revenue decline. Last year, I think I said we hit 69 million. You'll notice it's about cut in half for our projections for next year. And I should add, we think it will be several years. We hope things will be better with this vaccine we're so excited about. We hope that is great improvement and we can move into recovery next year. But even we expect a quick recovery to get pretty close to where we were, but then that last little bit we think might take a few extra years to come back as we watch and see with businesses and travelers, more tourism, how or if behaviors change post-pandemic. We like to talk about our strengths. I mentioned one of them. We're almost in the middle. We have an awful lot of traffic that that is in, we're able to accept a lot of traffic from within the US, which is where a lot of people are traveling right now. And then I really want to move into a handful of things that we're doing, and I am trying to watch the time. So I'll get through these quickly. Gisela Shanahan, our CFO, who's just moved on, had really prepared us well. We had 700 days of operating cash on hand when we entered the pandemic. So we felt, we didn't quite think it would take this long, but we really did. We were in a strong position. We created a few different models, immediately started making some cuts similar to the rest of you. I'm sure we froze hiring. We tried to remove spending. We really focused on kind of core needs and spending, as opposed to some of the growth related projects, which at Den, there's quite a bit there as well. And then there's this final note of, we did get almost $270 million from the federal government, and that has been very helpful to us as well. One more reminder for folks that may not know, we are an enterprise of the city and county of Denver. We're not funded by the city. We really have to sort of be self-contained within that enterprise, and our funding does come from the airlines, from the rental cars, the hotels, and related fees. So we really appreciated that federal support. So what we have been doing is working a lot on that, our partner recovery. We're not number 5 or number 2 in the nation without our partners, and those are, again, the airlines, rental cars, the hotel, the concessions. It's a really diverse ecosystem, and it works really well. And we want to, as much as possible, make sure that everyone can come back with us next year. So our leadership, was able to provide certain items, such as deferring rent, forgiving things in the contracts. Many contracts had a minimum guarantee payment. Again, when you're at 90-some% decline, it's really kind of cruel to ask your concessionaires or others to pay you a minimum guarantee. So we did provide relief for all of 2020, and we're actually talking about what we might be able to do in 2021. In addition, we did reprioritize our capital program and trying to figure out where we could take advantage of some of the slowdown and accelerate some projects. So we've been working on a combination of things. Great Hall, you've heard about that, I hope. A very big project for us, and more information will be coming out in the next few weeks there, but we have a new team in place. We're really working on a lot of these improvements, and that was in place and obviously going well before the pandemic. And even with the decline in passenger traffic for right now, we do expect it to return, and we do need these changes through the Great Hall. So we're excited to be making good progress there. We are also working on gate expansion. So I did say we're being cautious about growth, but we have our airline partners are still pretty bullish on Den and have committed to additional gates. So we are working on some gate expansion projects and making great progress there. Again, trying to find the good news in the kind of quiet time at the airport. And we hope to have some more public announcements even yet this week, perhaps, on the progress of some of those gates. Safety, as you know, has been one of the biggest things. I don't know if at the chamber, Jeff, if you've surveyed your members, but I certainly know through some of the other groups that we talk to and participate with, many of the members have just said, we're not going to travel until there's either a vaccine or a cure or some better safety for our employees, so that we don't feel that we're putting them at risk, putting them on a plane. So we've been working quite a bit on that, trying to find and provide all of the sanitizer, face masks, kiosks, anything you can do. Again, global, you would understand this as well. Many of your companies that some people fly into Den and don't know about our particular rules, which might be more stringent from where they're coming from. So we have had to work a lot on signage and making sure people understand what Denver requires and what is required at the airport, which is a mask for sure. And we want everyone to feel safe. The airport is very, very clean. The airlines have all taken additional steps. So we're really diligent about that and trying to provide as much comfort as we can. Of course, a vaccine or a cure would be much better than all of that. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that people do understand what we're doing, feel safe. I have to mention that a program called Verifly that we've just started. It's a partnership with a company called Dion, and really it's for folks that are maybe more concerned about the traffic and being around other people, where you can actually sort of get a separate, even a separate car as you're trying to work through. And we're doing a pilot right now. So this is just being launched on separate ways for people to really safely move through the airport in a way that works for them. Again, trying to provide that comfort that this picture, of course, is a more crowded day at the airport, but as people are moving through, that they feel safe to get to their destination. Looking forward, definitely focused. This is actually truly a picture at Den, the new world with people wearing masks and distance, but we're trying to create multiple scenarios, remaining flexible. And again, we're working with all of our partners because unfortunately, it appears that it will not be all wrapped up within this calendar year, but some of the COVID issues will carry into next year. So we're trying to sort out the right way that we can work with our partners, but also keep the airport healthy and our community healthy. So that was really fast, but I wanted to just give you a quick sense of what we're doing at the airport.
Great. Thank you, Amy. That was very informative. We'll have some questions for you that Matt will be leading a little after the other speakers.
Thank you.
So, let's go into Yuri Gorloff. He's the VP at Aurora's Economic Development Council. Yuri is responsible for business attraction, retention activities, and investor retention. Working with real estate professionals and businesses from large to small, connecting industry leaders, leveraging public resources has allowed them to structure deals and initiatives with a variety of companies, leading to the creation of more than 10,000 primary jobs during the last 5 years in the city of Aurora. Yuri, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
I'm glad you got connected.
I know. I'm all good. I was having connectivity issues, of course, right before this, but I'm good, I think. So hopefully I stay on. And good to see some familiar faces. It's been a long time. But we're all in this together, right? So yeah, Aurora's been dealing with all of this, as every other large municipality in the nation. Try to come up with some innovative programs, partially stemming from the CARES funding, partially taking some SBDC funding and kind of repurposing things. Just either earlier this week or late last week, the city came out with a special content creation studio, and they're utilizing a public facility by appointment only, of course, and being safe and distant. But for all of those small businesses that are down on resources but need marketing abilities and need to continue to promote their businesses during this difficult time. So it's lighting, it's equipment, it's a variety of resources, including some funding, and it's a really innovative pilot program, one of the, if not the first across the country to roll out something like that specific to a particular, role and position within small business in terms of marketing. So that's been done recently, and we're very excited to see where that goes. Aurora is pretty diverse in terms of industries: bioscience, aerospace, logistics, advanced manufacturing, some international companies, thanks to our proximity to Den, that have recently relocated there. Hospitality, obviously, of course, I'm assuming a lot of people on the phone know about the Gaylord being in Aurora, and that industry is, of course, hurting a lot. And they've been at growing as the airport in capacity, and some conferences have come, and they still have a good outlook for 2021, 22, 23, and a lot of firms are still committed to things. Some trends we've seen locally, and again, this probably mirrors and echoes other other municipalities across the country and our neighbors in Denver and Stephanie's, we are keeping leases and real estate values afloat, and companies are obviously prioritizing what they can do with people being remote and services needing to be where they are. So we really haven't seen a huge change in numbers, right, in terms of lease rates, vacancy rates, all of the above. I think we're going to in 2021. So we're trying to figure out how to position ourselves to kind of come out ahead, looking for synergies between industries. We worked with the manufacturers associations across the Front Range here early on to kind of find ways where they could work with bioscience companies and e-commerce companies and in a variety of ways. So we're trying to just really be creative and cross-pollinate, if you will, if that's a good term, to understand where resources can go. At the end of the day, there's a lot of money in a lot of people's pockets. I know it's unequitable, and I think that's one of the key terms here, and with the Chamber's efforts to really create sustainable, equitable programs and disperse, informative models. And I think our best practices have been to just reach out and connect with people and businesses and understand what they're going through and try to just connect some dots. I think that's what economic developers are supposed to do and hopefully good at doing everywhere. And so we're really trying to zero in on what conferences do come back, because networking is at the base of it. We're all probably really tired of looking at the screen and on Zooms like this. So we're trying to understand how to create hybrid models, right? And maybe that's silver lining for the VR, AR sort of industries, right? AI, the IoT industry with 5G coming online with everything now. It's really impressive to see those tech-oriented companies and professional services figure out what to do and how to take advantage of it. Another element to all this is entrepreneurial sort of spirit is not dead in America at all, and I think it's even more. There was a decline of small businesses, I think, as most statistics would show, right, in terms of new businesses, number of employees per business. I have the privilege of serving on Colorado Lending Sources Board, which is a SBA lender in the state in the Rocky Mountain region, and their while their portfolio is really strong and diverse, that was just a trend, internal trend, where small businesses just isn't growing as much as it used to, maybe in the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s. We might see a resurgence of that, right? And be able to, have behemoths like Amazon, Google, you name it, allow marketplaces and sellers and contract workers, gig workers, like we saw in California's, election cycle, and what that means, right? To take hold and let us be creative about it. The incentive model has changed, right? We used to traditionally try to attract businesses that were expanding, and they would be, it was a factory with 100 people, and that would, and just earlier today, I think the state commission approved some incentive deals. But now with remote working, how does an incentive look, right? If your employees are living across the globe, still working from a business address in Colorado, how does that look like for the tax rolls of the state, of the local municipality? So I know this, I feel like I'm just throwing a lot out there. We don't necessarily have a lot of answers, but we're thinking about a lot of things, and hopefully that stirs some interest with the audience here today, and encourages people to just try to talk through ways to get past this, and lean on each other. And I think in terms of trade, right, and Stephanie and I have been on some missions together. The city went to El Salvador, or had and hosted El Salvador, South Korea, Japan last year. And, we've been to Germany, we've been to other European countries. That definitely looks different and will look different. But I think it'll come back at some capacity and at some rate. And there's safer ways, less touch points, as Amy was alluding to still interact with people, maybe masks on, and maybe that's how we get used to it all. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else I can maybe say. I wanted, I think, to point out that Aurora is very diverse. We have over 100 languages in our public schools. We have over 100 different ethnic restaurants here. For a city of our size, that's pretty unique. 20% of our residents were born in a different country. So we like to promote that we're diverse and we're ready to take on any challenge creatively and collectively. And so really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and happy to have some Q&A later, hopefully. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Yuri. We definitely are going to have a little Q&A afterwards. And I appreciate all your insights and comments. All right, let's go with Stephanie Garnica, who's the Director of Global Business Development in Denver's Economic Development and Opportunity Office. In this role, Stephanie is implementing a strategy for the city's leverage and promote its global assets to attract foreign direct investment, increase international trade, and elevate Denver's reputation as a global hub of activity. Welcome, Stephanie. We look forward to your comments.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the Global Chamber hosting and organizing this event, and nice to see familiar faces on the panel. We are definitely all in this together, and there's no way we could come out of this without leaning on each other and into all the different initiatives we're all collectively working on. So as Jeff mentioned, I work for the City and County of Denver in the Economic Development Office, and I run our global business development team. And as Yuri mentioned too, we do partner, even though I work for the City of Denver and he works for the City of Aurora. We as a metro region really do try and collaborate, and oftentimes we'll take trips together to make people in other countries, primarily business communities, aware of all of the innovation and collaboration that takes place in our really centrally located region of the United States. So oftentimes it's an untold story. People in other countries tend to look at the East or West Coast first when they're looking at the United States. It may be all that they're familiar with, but it seems like a lot of businesses quickly come to discover that there is a really fantastic vibe here in our community. The location's great, cost of living, cost of establishing a business, access to great talent, the outdoor beauty is fantastic, and really the overall vibe. So even though COVID has certainly restricted international travel, which it does seem to be a really critical component of conducting international business or international trade, people have pretty quickly come around to a lot of these virtual activities, whether it's a meeting through a virtual platform or trade shows, trade events, networking sessions. So it seems like people are pretty quickly adapting to that new reality and still able to get their point across, able to get their needs across and communicate and be able to determine, in the case of a global business exploring potential expansion in our city or in our region, whether it's the right fit for them. And so the City of Denver, we have implemented a number of programs to help maintain the resiliency of our city. So we have launched through our office and with the help of the Mayor's Economic Relief and Recovery Council, different programs and policies that help support small businesses and nonprofits in Denver. So we have launched many rounds of the Small Business Emergency Relief Grant Program, so up to $7,500 per award. And we will have one additional round before the end of the year. So if anyone in the audience is a small business in Denver, I'll provide my email address and please feel free to reach out so we can make sure you get the application sent to you. Nonprofit emergency relief grants up to $15,000 per award. Free PPE kits for small businesses and nonprofits. Temporary outdoor dining program. So working with our Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to be able to expand the outdoor seating areas for restaurants and for stores as well. That has allowed a lot of the restaurants to be able to stay in business, which is critical. So it doesn't just rely on the delivery or takeout. There was a cap for third-party food delivery services that was put into place. Digital access, now that people more than ever really do have to rely on having access to broadband connection and having some type of device that they can connect through. We did launch a digital access program working with the Denver Public Library System to help provide laptops and hotspots to residents. So that has been something, again, just trying to ensure that everyone who needs connectivity can access it in some way or another. And then small business loan deferrals. So a lot happening, certainly on the domestic side, and partnering with other municipal governments, with our state government to support and collaborate however we can. Oddly enough, we haven't seen a slowdown in the international business activity from the perspective of foreign companies looking to grow and expand in Denver. Maybe the timeline looks a little bit different. They may be hiring people to start working virtually to begin with, but we continue to see a number of companies that are finding out about our city, interested in it, and reaching out to uncover what opportunities there may be for them here. A big part of what makes our whole community, as Yuri mentioned, such a diverse city or such a diverse region, such an inclusive and welcoming region as well, certainly are a lot of the global assets that we have, such as the Global Chamber, such as our immigrant and refugee communities, nonprofit organizations, other globally focused chambers. We have a consular corps in Colorado where a little over 35 foreign diplomats are stationed here representing their country and their constituents. We have all the international connectivity out of our airport that Amy mentioned. We have higher educational institutes and federal labs that do research and programs abroad, that host visitors and students from abroad. So we really are this fantastically global region of the world that's starting to make a bigger name for itself as being this innovative hub of collaboration, fun, easy to access business climate. So we do feel really proud of that, and feel proud of the fact that we're all working together to ensure that we can come out of COVID even stronger and better than we were before. So through the pandemic, we've really worked hard to keep our economy strong, but also to keep our global relationships strong as well. And as I said, the steady pipeline of international business interests and activity, and even virtual programming such as Denver Startup Week, the outdoor retail show that tends to draw in a big international crowd also moved to a global platform. So lots of things happening that we probably never could have even imagined doing through a computer or through our phone or tablet, but now we are doing it and we're making it work. So the global activity continues, and it's just important for all of us to do our part locally, while also maintaining a steady eye on what's happening around the world. And countries have different timelines for when their borders might open up. It's virtually impossible right now to travel abroad unless Canada and Mexico have opened their borders to some degree. Most European countries, unless you're a full-time student or a resident or citizen of one of the countries, you cannot travel there. In talking to some of our Australian and New Zealand counterparts, they're saying that their country borders will probably not be open until maybe July 1st of 2021 at the earliest, that it may even go through September, and that they would just open up for the last 3 months of the year. So everyone's approaching it differently, handling it differently, have all kinds of different programs in place. So it will take everyone's efforts, and thankfully there are some vaccines in process, in progress, that the world can hopefully access quickly. But thankfully there are tools such as all of these great virtual platforms to keep people connected, informed, and pursuing future business opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was great to hear. Some encouragement. You had some encouragement in there. That's good. Always good to hear. We're always looking for that. So now we're going to do a little Q&A. And so we have some questions for you. But before we start our Q&A, let me just give our regrets from Bo Martinez. He was supposed to join us. something came up where he wasn't able to attend. And he's the president and CEO of the Adams County Economic Development Council there. So let's start with the Q&A, and Matthew LaCrue from Denton's, and he's the chair of our Global Affairs Council, will be leading that discussion. So let's welcome Matthew.
Thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our panelists for being with us today. As Jeff said, I am the chair of the Public Affairs Council and been involved with the Global Chamber for a few years now. So we've been doing some great movement and working with our partners and our local economic development partners. So it's been a great few years as we continue to support and build our economic development here in Colorado. So questions have come in. We filtered a few of them, but we'll just go ahead and kick it off, and I will invite those that are participating online to feel free to use the Q&A function if you'd like to ask a question to any of our panelists here, and we'll go ahead and we'll do our best to get to those. But there are a few that we'll go ahead and start with. And the first one is going to be for Miss Amy Edinger at DIA. And that is, what was DIA's biggest challenge navigating through the pandemic?
It's a great question. I would say, first and foremost, the health and safety of our own teams and all the people that are working at the airport and the ability of them to do their work and be safe, right? So that's normally not something that you have to consider, even in, there have been prior issues or instances in, in the airline industry or that type of travel. And it was really hard because some of our employees did have COVID, and you don't know, do they get it at work? Do they get it at home? Because of this duration of how long it can be. But in the beginning, there were some folks that have had it, and you probably saw a report in the paper this week where TSA had a screener at the airport who sadly passed away. So I think not knowing, really not having enough information about the disease and really trying to be supportive of our own teams and, and ourselves, everyone, right? So the leadership team was trying to make decisions and went remote fairly quickly to make sure that they didn't give it to each other, not knowing that they had it, right? So we sort of went early to some remote to make sure that we would have that continuity that you need as a 24/7 operation, and with that, just the having some people on, in the airport, some people remote, and having it so quiet, it's, there've been some morale and some challenges. So trying to keep people really engaged, whether they're working from home or, at the airport, that's probably been the kind of top of mind. Of course, there's the enterprise and trying to make sure that we think through options. Everyone I talk to says budgeting is miserable this year, right? Because we all have to come up with not 3 scenarios, but 100. And you have to guess a little bit, but really I think the people aspect has been hard. And I give Kim Day and the leadership team a lot of credit for that. They care a lot about the people. That's evident in what they do, and trying to think through what tools we had to help airlines and tenants keep going while we were looking at our own budget and losing money. Certainly an exercise we didn't expect to have to do. So long answer to that question.
Thank you, Amy. The next question I'll throw out to Yuri and Stephanie, and feel free to jump in, whoever wants to answer first. And this has come in, let's see here. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has this slowed down the growth of our state's economic development?
The growth of our economic development?
Yeah, has it slowed down any due to the pandemic?
I'd put it as a resounding no. We've been incredibly tied up in a lot of deals that were coming down the pike before this all started, and our pipeline is full and is Stephanie said, yeah, internationally and domestically, I think a lot of companies, and it's because the Front Range is I think positioned and diverse in a lot of ways that, yeah, we've been working hard, and it's been a combination of existing industries and newer industries, and I think the flight to the suburbs, if you will, based on whether it's incomes or demographics or industries, that's all very prevalent to us, at least. So I think that's created a new wave, if you will, of folks that are asking us a lot of questions and looking at a lot of developments. And our market is absorption's been pretty steady, especially on the industrial side. And I think there's millions and millions of square feet of industrial that's going to continue to come to the market, data center, cloud computing sort of folks as well. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I would echo that in terms of what we're seeing both on the domestic side and the international side. People who may have been let go from one position can tap into so many different programs through the city's workforce development, the state's workforce development, a number of other employment-centered organizations to help relocate them to a new type of position. So it seems like our city was set up for success going into that as much as we could have been, with, as Yuri said, the diversity of industry, not really being dependent on any one particular sector, and the innovation and creativity of people to come up with solutions and new ways of doing things. And also a surge in entrepreneurs, in smaller businesses, maybe difference of timelines, whether it's quicker or slower, but I feel like we have a pretty solid pipeline of prospects we're still working with, and that we continue to read about high-ranking accolades and companies moving here or opening offices here and creating lots of job opportunities. So it seems like we're on a pretty steady trajectory.
Great. Thank you both for answering that question. Looks like we had a member of our panel join, Mr. Bo Martinez from the Adams County Regional Economic Partnership. I will turn it over briefly to Jeff, so that way we can give Bo just some time to introduce himself and talk about the great work he's doing in Adams County.
Well, welcome, Bo. I was already giving regrets that you weren't going to be here, but I'm glad you did finally make it. So let me just give you a little intro here. Let's see, Bo Martinez is the president and CEO of the Adams County Regional Economic Development Partnership, a nonprofit public-private organization that drives inclusive economic growth, job creation, supports business, and promotes Adams County and the Metro North region as the leading global location for business. Bo was previously the director of the economic development of the city of Miami Beach. And Bo, I don't know why you come back in the winter, but that's your call. And then you also led the economic development in the city of Broomfield. So welcome, Bo. Let's it's all yours. And then we'll go back to some Q&A before we end it all.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Matt. I apologize for being a little late, but as you all know, as we navigate and work through this COVID-19 pandemic, I was just on the phone with a couple of commissioners and a couple of state representatives talking about the upcoming emergency session and then the 2021 legislative session. I said, sorry, guys, I really have to go out to meet with the Global Chamber of Commerce. So you got a big shout out. So, but with that, like everyone else, we've been really, really busy. We've been, I wouldn't say drinking from a fire hydrant. We've been, just really, really busy. And so from our perspective, from Adams County Regional Economic Partnership, we have 4 core strategies that we're working on as we not only navigate through this COVID-19 pandemic, but looking forward as an organization and community. And so the core strategies that we're focusing on right now are economic development and placemaking. And so we really want to, people start looking at me like, why did you include placemaking with economic development? And so I kind of give them the opportunity to kind of allow me to speak on it. And so from an economic development standpoint, we're looking at, business retention and expansion, as well as proactive business development to bring new industry and jobs to our community. And then when we look at it from a placemaking perspective, it's really looking at it from a quality of life and looking at it from a parks and open space, transportation, mobility, arts and culture, and all the things that make up a great community and region. And so that's why we feel that's a strong connection as it relates to the placemaking strategy. And the second area we're focusing on is we talk with all our members, both public and private sector, as part of our organization is business advocacy and public policy. And so we're really working hard on how we work with our local representatives as well as our state representatives and then our congressional delegation in DC. And so we really positioned ourselves around working on transportation mobility issues, workforce development, attainable housing, education, as well as workforce development. We really feel those are the big ones that we want to focus on as an organization, as well as other policy and issues that impact businesses and industry within our community. The fourth pillar that we do is around membership development and engagement. And part of that is making sure that we get a good return on investment and return on engagement for all our public and private sector investors that belong to the organization. And two, making sure that we're looking at it from a talent generation perspective. How do we work with our workforce development partners? How do we work with business and industry? And how do we work with people within the community that need a job? And so from a talent generation perspective, we want to make sure to look at how do we retain and grow our existing leaders within the community, and how do we attract new leaders to our community? And so, given through this COVID pandemic environment, we're seeing, obviously we went from full employment to record unemployment, back in the first quarter of 2020 with the pandemic. And so now we're trying to look forward on what does it look like, what the new normal looks like from a job and employment perspective. And then the fifth pillar is really focusing on marketing, branding, and communication. How do we tell the Adams County and Metro North region story, not only to all our existing business and industry, but also to those who are not here in the community from a national and international perspective. So we've been really, really busy. And on the COVID-19 stuff, we rolled out a Adams County mini grant program in partnership with the county, which provided rent and mortgage assistance to our small businesses, provided them opportunities to purchase PPE, for their businesses. We offered a grant that provides them technology assistance for their business, as well as compliance working, either with an attorney or someone else that can help them navigate all the challenges as it relates to loans and grants and other things that are impacting their business from that perspective. In addition to that, we also did a safe and open campaign with all our small businesses throughout the community. And that was really just focused on to make sure that they have their customers know how important they are to their business, but also making sure that they're following all the guidelines and rules that coming from Tri-County Health, and to ensure that their businesses and their patrons that they're following all the guidelines. And so with that Safe and Open campaign, it was a volunteer program where they opt in, they get a kind of a certificate they can put on their window and say, what, we're safe and open and we're following all the guidelines that are established by their healthcare department. So those are some things that we're doing around that. And we're also working closely with all our partners like the SBDC to make sure that we're getting technical assistance out to our businesses. In addition to that, we've actually put boots on the ground. So we went out and talked with our businesses one-on-one. And I can tell you the biggest challenges that we heard from our business community through a survey and boots on the ground is they needed access to capital. They needed property tax relief. They needed rent assistance, payroll assistance, and utility assistance. So when you think about the impacts to our business community, this is what they're asking for. So I'm happy to say that we were able to respond to all these different needs with the stimulus funds that came from DC, as well as some matching with local funds, but that's still not enough money. And so at the end of the day, we are very challenged now and going forward, and we're just working as hard as we can to not only save all our businesses, but also looking forward post COVID-19. Because if you all probably read in the Forbes magazine that the Metro Denver region was looked at as one of the top 10 metros throughout the country that would come out of this COVID-19 crisis the fastest. And one of the big reasons why is because we diversify our economy now and going forward. So I think that's helped a lot. So hopefully I didn't take too much time.
No, that was great. Thank you, Bo, and appreciate you making it. And again, welcome back to Colorado. We missed you for that time you were gone.
Thank you. I love living on the beach for a year, but home is home, and Colorado's special.
Great. Well, thank you. Matt, it's all yours again.
Great, thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Bo. Thanks for joining us. I think that's a great segue into another question, and we will give this to anybody that's on the panel here. But this question came in through our chat. How is the region collaborating to stabilize and recover? What factors are key to the success?
I would say certainly mayors, county commissioners, economic development offices having conversations with one another to determine what's working in their communities, what's not, how can we work together, especially knowing that people might live in one city or county but work in another and vice versa. So, you know, it's not whatever's happening isn't contained within a city or county border. It transcends into all of us and will be stronger. When one is strong, it makes all of us stronger. So I think the mayoral conversations, the economic development, peer-to-peer conversations, continuing to strategize, especially when it comes to international, if there's a country or industry that we're all focused on, if we can come together as a region and offer whatever it is we want to showcase. So one example, we were slated to host a group of government officials, business officials, academia, higher senior level deans or faculty, and they wanted to learn about the innovation system in Colorado. And one of our visits was going to be to the Fitzsimmons or the Anschutz Life Science Campus, which happens to be in Aurora. So working with Yuri to coordinate a visit and be able to showcase an asset like that to a group that could really benefit by learning more about it. So even though that's a little bit more long-term thinking, certainly having those open conversations and opportunities where we're all working together for the good of the whole entire community are some of the things that we're already doing.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our next question, if anybody doesn't want to answer.
Hey, Matt, I can elaborate on that a little bit more, and I think Stephanie, said it really well. The Metro Denver region is known for regional cooperation, and all the economic development organization anchors within the community, like Denver International Airport, work very closely together because we think with the rising tide, all boats rise to the top, and I think that's a good way. When we talk with site selectors and businesses that are here, are those that are expanding. They do love that regional cooperation and that messaging. From a COVID-19 perspective, I can tell you that our business community feels very challenged because right now they're hearing messages from the different counties. They're hearing messages from the different, like Tri-County Health, and then Denver Health has their own. Then you've got Boulder County has their own health departments. And so the big challenge there is how do we bring all these different messages together and have one community, one voice to help our businesses understand, navigate all the challenges that are ahead of them. And so, one of the things that we've talked about is, we need to treat this kind of like a campaign, but the campaign is the COVID-19 crisis. And so how do we message and communicate among everyone throughout the community? And I think that challenge is still in front of us, but I think we can do a better job. As I think, Stephanie, you said, all the mayors are coming together, but it'd be great for the economic development organizations as well as, the county health departments to come together to have maybe more of a stronger and singular message as we navigate through this crisis.
That's great. That's great. All right. Our next question is to Amy with DIA. So the question comes in, reading the tea leaves on your crystal ball, what will you see in 2021, and when will the global plane traffic be back to normal, as well as domestic travel? I mean, I know that's probably hard to answer, but with your position as planning for the future, what do you see for plane traffic in the coming year?
Well, we certainly hope for that vaccine, right, and distribution there that will start to, if that does happen, and if it happens quickly in the first half of the year, we do believe that we will start a recovery. But it will be different groups first, and we think that some of the international could be some of the last to come back because of the different rules in different countries, right? I might have mentioned earlier, we even have different states where within the US that have different rules, and that's creating an impact, but certainly it's hard to travel internationally right now. Not impossible, but to Stephanie's point earlier, you might have to fit a certain box. So we think we'll get back to 80% within a few years. We hope within a 2 to 3. And then some of the question will be, how do you get that last bit back? And what is really interesting, and I don't know that a crystal ball would help. It'd be lovely to know if someone knew the answer, is what will we go back to, right? Are we going to go back to the same behaviors that we all had before? We don't think so. We hear that a lot of the tech companies are going to let people work remotely, possibly forever, for long periods of time. Companies might need that were either in smaller office spaces and having everyone work together in kind of groups might want to actually have bigger space to separate people out more. Other companies might say, hey, it's working remotely, so some of our employees might stay and we need a smaller footprint. So as we try to understand what's happening in the business community, and then of course with travelers and their level of confidence, it's going to be interesting to see what's coming back. I should tell you right now, what we see more is, the kind of the last minute, really lower cost travel. So the people that aren't afraid of the pandemic, that they're taking advantage. And so where we're having flights and car rentals and all of those things, they're all more in that lower cost conscious area. Again, not on the business side. So trying to see what comes back and what behaviors we all have. I think Yuri mentioned a mask. I would gladly, wear a mask. I don't know. I probably will wear a mask in the future on planes, even if there's a vaccine. It just seems like a smart thing to do, knowing what we've all learned, right? So, those behaviors will be interesting to see, and what the kind of post-COVID world looks like. I'm super curious and nosy, and I'd like to myself to get the answer to that one, but that is the question of the day.
That's great. Thank you, Amy. I totally understand. I work for a large global law firm, and we have about 10,000 colleagues. And so putting everybody through virtual and moving to the new era of meeting, it is definitely tough. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going into the future, and how we will adapt, and will we consolidate offices and things like that. So I think that's something we'll have to look forward to. All right, we have about a minute left or so. I will throw out one other question, and I'll throw this to Yuri, give him an opportunity to answer. What is something that you see for Aurora and the regions that we need to do to remain competitive and to be a strong economic driver in the nation?
Good question. Thanks. I'll try to be brief and concise. So I think we need to really communicate our differentiators and the people we work with, that we are a community that has invited a lot of different industries into the state, into the region, and have done it in I'd say a unique way, and just keep communicating that our partners are always standing by to get creative. And I think if, regardless of industry, right, if you're thinking of, again, I'll reference data centers or aerospace contractors or cargo operators, whatever they may be, they need to understand that there's a sort of one voice, and as Bo was mentioning, right, there's a level, at some sort of level, whether that's the state or an association sort of UN type voice that says, hey, we're open for business. We're ready to invite you and understand what the next generation of employment looks like, of professional services looks like, and we're ready to solve those problems together. So.
Great. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour, and I want to thank you all for joining us. Before I turn over for Jeff for closing remarks, I want to allow anybody that's on our panel today to, offer your closing remarks to the group that's online listening.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that, and thank you for managing that. I want to just give thanks to our speakers, Stephanie, Amy, Yuri, and Bo for participating together. And maybe we're going to have to, we mentioned about the crystal ball. Well, maybe we're going to have to bring you back in 6 months and see where your thoughts were and see if they matched up again. So keep that on your calendar.
That'd be great.
And then last but not least, I want to thank our sponsor, Prudential Insurance. I know we have Louise Pumphrey and James LaFemina still on the line. So thank you for your support of Global Chamber and this fantastic group that we have today. So everybody, good night. Have a great evening. And I appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Bye.